Hello, my name is Kiriath, and today we're going to have a little chat about this chunky lad here, this Leviathan Dreadnought, which I put together last week, and we're going to have a little chat about it because this, I think, it is the best model I've ever got from Forge World, and putting it together was so easy and enjoyable that it might be close to my favourite kit I've ever assembled. So previously, I thought my favourite kit was the Imperial Knight or the Chaos Knight. Either of those, really. I like both of them. They are, of course, very similar, but they are really nicely, well thought out kits that are pretty much a joy to assemble and don't feel arduous or frustrating at any point. They're easy to just get on with, and before you know it, you're done. Some Forge World stuff can be a little bit tricky. It can require quite a lot of cleanup, quite a lot of, a bit of soaking, just adjustment. Adjustment all round. A few contemptors I've had have been like that. My Typhon Heavy Siege Tank was a right pain in the backside to put together. This, by contrast, was pretty much perfect. It required almost no messing about with at all. Still a little bit that I need to get rid of there that I missed, but overall, this thing required pretty much no cleanup whatsoever. There was hardly any flashing, there was hardly anything in the way of filing that needed to be doing. When it came to actually assembling it, it just went together completely easily. I don't think I've ever had a Forge World model that has gone together as easily as this has. I mean, when you put this together, you essentially put the two sides there onto the main part of the body. This bit on the top here, above the head, that goes all the way to the back, just underneath the missile launcher there, that is something you put on last, pretty much. That slotted into that gap perfectly with absolutely no adjustment required. And it didn't just slot in, it is completely flush on both sides. And it connected with the body perfectly. I've never had that with a Forge World model before. I've never had a model that required almost no work to put together. It's the same story with the legs. All of it just fit together completely flush with no effort. There was no effort required for any of this. Same for the back parts there, same for attaching the body to the ring that matches the legs. Don't worry, by the way, I am going to take this apart to paint it. It is glued, but it's super fragile. I've got this tube of knackered old super glue that I use for... It's not like dry fitting models because it does stick, but if I wave this thing around slightly too hard, the legs and the and the cannons will fall off. So I'm being a little bit delicate with it, but the only thing that I struggled with on this model, literally the only thing, were the storm cannon arrays, and even that, to be honest, could have been a lot worse. Where the rest of this Leviathan was completely flawless to put together and required no effort, the storm cannon array, they committed the cardinal sin for me when it comes to resin and plastic. It really doesn't matter what material it is because it's just a bad idea that you shouldn't do. The back of this storm cannon array, this is two separate parts. So you've got the ammo holder there, like the ammo case thing, and then it feeds round into there. And it connects there, as you can see, because there's a little bit of a gap, and it connects in this join here, which you can see because there's a little bit of a gap. Same story on the other side. A little bit of a gap, a little bit of a gap. Now, the issue with that, for both of these bits, and these were by far the most frustrating things to put together, purely because of the way they're manufactured, they did the sin. They did the thing where they took two large flat surfaces and made it that's where you're supposed to join them together. So where that join is flat on the ammo case side and flat on the storm cannon array side. Which would be fine, except the little pylons that you get from the casting were attached onto the flat part of the storm cannon and onto the flat part of the ammo case. Which meant that, you have to cut them off, saw them off, and then file down and hope that you manage to get both of them completely flat. Because if you don't get both of them completely flat, you get little gaps, like as what are currently on this model. And it took ages to get it that flush. I was not going to keep going because, well, frankly, I just got bored of carefully filing, fitting, carefully filing, fitting. Nope, still a little bit of a gap. I got to the point where it was what I deemed an acceptable gap and then left it because, paint will hide it, it'll be fine. That was the only irritating part of this model. Now, for a Forge World model, that to me is pretty damn impressive. I've put together quite a few Forge World things at this point. I've put together a few Contemptors. I've put together the Typhon Heavy Siege tank. That was a whole thing. I've got a few resin characters and stuff. I mean, obviously there's Lorgar, which I used as a base for a conversion for a Slaanesh Demon Prince. I mean, of all the things I've assembled from Forge World, this is by far the highest quality thing. It's required the least cleanup. Everything has fit much more cleanly, much more easily. I know there's still a little bit of work to do around here, which I had missed previously, but just in terms of an experience to put together, I would do this again in a heartbeat. I just had so few issues and so little messing about in comparison to so many other things. I mean, not that long ago I put together a bunch of skeletons for Age of Sigmar, which admittedly I bought for D&D, but still, they, as, just a fairly simple kit, were more, felt more complicated than this vehicle, just because of how well designed this is. The Contemptors aren't bad, don't get me wrong, the Contemptors aren't bad to put together, but I've had a couple of issues with them where they just don't fit quite as well as maybe they could, and I suppose actually something to compare it to in terms of ease of assembly would be this, which I'm still working on converting. It's taken a while to get all the bits I need for this thing, but I know in a way it's a little bit apples to oranges because you've got one thing here which is big chunky parts. It there isn't a lot of small connections going on, whereas this is a lot of smaller connections. But in terms of just how they're designed, in terms of how the kit comes together, this is better done than this one, which is Anarchist Scoria? I don't know how to pronounce the name. It's little things. It's little things like the size of connections and stuff. Yes, they need to be small, as you can see from the legs. They need to be small on this kit. But these are socket joints, and each socket is slightly different, except the casting on this one wasn't fine enough for there to be not a discernible difference. There was a discernible difference. Some of them didn't fit quite as badly as other ones didn't fit, but every single one of these legs I had to adjust just to get them to sit right in the joint. And it's the same story with a lot of stuff on this model, where the overall execution is great, the model is really nice, but the design of it, unless it's flawless, it's a pain to put together, and this was a pain to mess with. Again, all these legs will come off dead easy. Some of them have got really dodgy connections, so even if I had glued them properly, it wouldn't take much to take them off, but they weren't going to go on any other way. This is the last thing that I'd built from Forge World before building this, and the difference is absolutely night and day. This felt like something that was designed to look a certain way, and then the way it was put together was an afterthought. Now, I don't know how true that is. It's probably not true at all, but that's how it felt putting it together, where it's all these tiny little joints, none of which were quite fine enough to do what they were supposed to, and nothing quite fit the way it felt like it should. Some of the connections were just way too small. You kind of sitting there thinking, did they assemble one of these before they put it out? Because it's just too fiddly. Compare that with that. It's night and day. It's night and day. This feels like something that someone actually sat down and went, okay, how do we make this as easy as possible? And they found a way to make it as easy as possible, and that's what we got. I mean, it's not just the fact that it was easy to put together. It's so posable as well, was something that really impressed me with this. You could get lost in working out how to pose this thing for days on end, because it's really, really easy. Everything goes together simply, but there's a huge range of movement for the legs and the arms to an extent as well. You could put 4 of these together and every single one of them could have a completely unique pose. And it wouldn't take any more time to do anything different. I've got to say, of all the kits that Forge World has done that I've had any experience with anyway, This is by far the best one. By far the best one. Lovely, smooth, clean finish. Almost no cleanup required at all. So little overall cleanup to do that I didn't even notice some of the stuff there, purely because I didn't need to trim 99% of this. It was just perfect how it was. So, yeah, I'm super happy with the Leviathan. I think it's one of the best looking models that Forge World do, and I'm super happy that it's also one of the most every part was consistent, every single bit of it was easy to deal with. And yeah, I thought quite often when I'm talking about models and converting and stuff, I'll find something to complain about with what I'm doing, and I thought it'd be a bit of a contrast and a nice thing to show something that actually just came together pretty flawlessly. Obviously, Storm Cannon Arrays a little bit frustrating, a little bit disappointing in the context of the rest of the Dreadnought, but as models go, I think that might be one of my favourite things I've put together to date. It's just so easy and nicely done. So yeah, that is just, I guess, technically a review of the Leviathan. I guess. I could call it that. Why not? Really good model, really nice, really easy to put together. I would say the body of the Leviathan, 10 out of 10, would recommend. The Storm Cannon Arrays, I'd have to knock it down. I mean, the quality on the cast is absolutely fine. They look great, but the join, it takes 2 points off just because it's such of a pain. Big flat surfaces don't work as join points, and it irritates me when I see it. So I'd say Storm Cannons are 8 out of 10 each, but Leviathan, easy 10 out of 10. Really good. Anyway, that was just a rambly thing. Thank you very much for watching. Feel free to click all the things, Patreon, video, subscribe, all that stuff. Click it if you like, don't click if you don't want to. And yeah, there's an affiliate link in the description for Element Games. You know how it works. You save a bunch of money off tabletop stuff. It helps the channel out, requires no extra effort, and 10% of anything spent through that link will go to charity at the end of the month. So, yeah, nice thing to do if you want to, but you don't have to. It's up to you. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Toodaloo.